Our guest was at one point England's most expensive goalkeeper and a Champions League winner to boot, and on the face of it, Chris Kirkland has had a career many would envy. He may be best known for a bet that his dad placed for £100 when Chris was just a teenager that his son would play for England. The bet, of course, came through and his dad won himself 10 grand. However, Chris himself has said his career has also been dogged by frustration, and in 2017 he revealed he'd been suffering from depression. Chris is now an advocate for mental health well-being, and his daughter is part of the youth setup at Liverpool. We'll be talking to Chris about the highs and lows of his career. Chris, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, no problem, Jack.
So obviously a pretty diverse career for you, and you started really young. When was it that you first knew that you had the potential to go on and play at the very top level as a goalkeeper?
I think it was probably when I was about 16, 17, because I was a late starter. I wanted to play on pitch. I played on pitch, but it didn't kick into me till I was about 15, and then I managed to get a YTS at Coventry when I was 16. Again, the goalkeeper that signed at the same time, Steve Watson, I don't know if Rich remembers him, but he was a Geordie lad. He was meant to be the next big thing, so-called, in football. But pretty quickly, I managed to overtake him, and things went from there. So, but yeah, it was more when I got in front of him, because he was the next big thing, and I got in front of him and I was playing. I think that gave me the spur on and the confidence I needed.
And it's extraordinary how young you were in the spotlight, because you were the most expensive goalkeeper in the world at £8 million when you were only 20 years old, when Liverpool signed you from Coventry. That's a huge amount of pressure for such a young man, isn't it?
Yeah, I've been asked this question many times before. Back then, when you was a kid, it didn't bother me at all. I didn't even think about that. You don't think about that when you're that. That's for the other people to sort out. But nothing bothered me, nothing fazed me when I was younger. I just wanted to train all the time. I wanted to play. I'd be out there all day training if I could be. It's not until you get older that you want to. I found that anyway once I got older and realised some of the magnitude of the games you were playing in, like in relegation battles with Wigan and when I was at Sheffield Wednesday as well. I mean, I only noticed it then really, but when I was younger, nothing fazed me at all. And I suppose that's what got me the move from Coventry to Liverpool.
Hi, Chris. Just looking at a few of the quotes from some of the people. So, Sven-Göran Eriksson, a couple of interesting quotes. The future of English goalkeeping. Joel, Chris is one of the top 3 goalkeepers in the country if he's fit and playing regularly. Steve Bruce, some very nice quotes as well. Out of the managers you worked with, was there any specific manager that you look back really fondly upon?
Yeah, well, I mean, I obviously Gordon Strachan gave me my debut at Coventry. You know, we were in a tough situation at the time, and he put his faith in me at such a young age, which obviously then I moved on to Liverpool. Gerard Hulley I've had a lot with everybody. Gerard Hulley was fantastic with me when I was injured a lot at Liverpool. You know, I remember when I did my cruciate leg down in Palace, I sat next to him on the plane on the way back, and you know, he said, "Right, I'll sort your new contract out tomorrow." And he did. He gave me a new 6-year contract. So stuff like that, you never forget stuff like that. Wigan, Paul Jewell took me there, and he was brilliant. And he left, unfortunately. Steve Bruce coming in. It's probably the best I've played in my career under Steve Bruce. He was there with Nigel Spink and Gary Walsh. That's probably the best I've played under somebody.
Speaking about Steve Bruce, Chris, I mean, he played with Peter Schmeichel, and he actually said that you are right up there alongside Peter Schmeichel as one of the best. But you mentioned Gordon Strachan too. Now, I don't know whether you're aware of this, but one of the quotes he said upon you first playing football was that you were a big Bambi who couldn't kick the ball out of the penalty box.
That's true. That's very true. When I was in the youth team at Coventry, I couldn't get it out. I literally could not kick the ball outside the 18-yard box. When I was 16, I had no strength, no technique whatsoever. So yeah, that was his first sign of me. But Gordon was amazing. He was great with the way you had to be strong-minded for some of Gordon's comments, because he tested you, that's for sure. But I owe a massive debt to him. I've seen him a couple of times since obviously over the years, and he's the one that gave me my debut. So I always hold him in high esteem.
Kirky, I've got to ask you, what would you have done differently now? You know, I certainly look back at my career, and I had the odd injury as well, which we'll touch on in a bit. But was there anything that you'd have done differently? You mentioned your kick in there. So when you were younger, and I know goalkeeping's changed a lot now, did you prepare your body for the rigours of what you were going to be facing?
No, I mean, back then as well, you've got to remember that there was none of this core stuff. There was none of this strength stuff like there is now, sports science. you got injured, and all the rehab back then was as soon as you felt okay, you trained. Whereas now it's totally different. The only thing I would change is I would have rested on days off. I was relentless on days off. I'd go out on a 10-mile run. I'd go out on my bike. I would rest on days off, and I tell that to people now. Work as hard as you want, when you work days are, but when you get that rest, you need to give your body a rest. So that's the one thing that I wish I could. But you can say that about 100 things in your lifetime. You wish you could change things, but that's what I try and pass on now to the other lads. To work as hard as I can on work days, but make sure the rest of the body.
How do you look at your legacy, Chris? Because I suppose one of the things that has been said about you is injuries. But I read an interview with you where you said actually that was only a small part of your career, and you were largely speaking injury-free. Of course, won the Champions League as well. Do you think, when you look back at your career, do you think that you've been remembered in the correct light, if you like?
I think people have their own opinion regardless whatever happens with yourselves. Liverpool, obviously, it was more highlighted because I was, as you said before, I was took there as meant to be the next big thing. I was injured, so obviously when you're at a club like Liverpool, it's always highlighted. But it wasn't silly little things. It wasn't like a niggle I was getting all the time. It was serious injuries I received at Liverpool. I broke my wrist, I did my back, I did my knee, I broke my fingers. It wasn't silly little injuries, but that said, when you're at a club like Liverpool, these things get highlighted. And yes, I got labelled injury prone. Went to Wigan, 4 years there, played 130 odd games in 4 seasons, so near enough every game. Lost my place the last 2 years. I wasn't injured, I just didn't play. Ali obviously played. Went to Sheffield Wednesday, 2012, played every game for 2 seasons. The 3rd season, Kieran West would come in, so I was on the bench for near enough every game. So when you look at it like that, it wasn't because I was injured. It's just because at the time I was either not playing, I was on the bench, but apart from my Liverpool time, in a few games I missed with Wigan with my back injury, but it was like a game here and a game there, which my fitness record stands up against most people. Yeah.
It's funny, you talk about the injuries, Chris, and yes, people will remember that, but I reckon if you walked along the street and asked 10 football fans what they remember about Chris Kirkland, surely it's got to be the bet, the England bet.
I get asked a lot. I do get asked that a lot. Yeah, I do get asked that a lot. I didn't actually know my dad put it on until it actually surfaced. Until it was first down the papers, I had no idea he'd put the bet on.
Until he rolled up in a Porsche.
Yeah.
What did the money go on? Did it go on anything special? Did you ever see any of that money?
I never seen any of it. I mean, listen, the story was, we used to go down a working men's club on a Sunday night. When I was a kid, my dad used to take me down there. We used to play snooker, and obviously had a lot of friends down there, and they used to play darts on a Thursday. I used to go down and do the scoreboard, and they used to chip 50p in for me at the end each, so I made 3 or 4 quid, and it was from that. So it was actually people from the working men's club that grew up knowing me, sort of thing, over the years from when I was a kid, that they all put money into it as well. So there was, some had 20 quid, some had 10 quid. My mum and dad had 20 quid, because I think that at the time they could afford. So there was about 6 or 7 different people in it, but it paid out just before Christmas. So for some of them, I know one of the families, he had 3 daughters, and he didn't know how he was going to get them presents, and he ended up getting £2,000. So that's paid for there. So it was great. Stuff like that was brilliant. But it was never about that for me, Dad. It was never about making the money. It was because people say, well, why did they were only allowed to put £100 on it. They couldn't put any more than that on it. And he got odds of 100 to 1, which back then, when I was 13, I've said this many times, if I'd have gone into the bookies with him, then he'd have got about 1 million to 1 if you'd have seen the state of it.
Well, talking about...
Go on, mate.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, we're talking about paying out and bonuses. I know, obviously, you've got a young daughter that plays in goal, and she's on a pretty good clean sheet bonus. Yeah,
she's managed to con me out of giving a £10 a clean sheet. So at the minute she's kept, I think it's 4 out of 5 games this season that they've played. They've won 4 and lost 1, but the 4 that they've won kept clean sheet.
Do you know what it is, Chris? These young players are only motivated by the money, aren't they? That's the problem.
No, it's because she's got me wrapped around her little finger. That's what it is.
She's doing brilliantly though, right? She's currently at Liverpool.
Yeah, she's doing really well. I mean, I let her get on with it. She's under 12s goalkeeper there. She's got her own goalie coach there. We go around and have a kick around in the garden. She asks me anything or anything like that, but she already tells me she's miles better than I ever was, so she doesn't need any of my advice. But I get so nervous going to watch her. It's so hard for me to go and watch her because I know how hard it is being a goalkeeper, and sometimes you see these things where, why didn't they save that, or why didn't they do that, or why are they kicking that for? And it's just because I know how hard it is a position for her, but I'm so proud of her. I went the other day because I've missed a couple of games because I've been working with Liverpool and stuff, but I went the other day and it was the longest 75 minutes of my life, I think, because they were winning and it was still 0-0 and she was making saves and the clock was just not ticking down. But she enjoyed it, that's the biggest thing. But she's come on no end, she has come on. She's worked hard at it though. She's one of them kids that, because at the start she had a lot of work to do, but she's one of them kids, no matter what she does, she'll go away and work at it, and you can tell now she's getting the rewards now. They're delighted with her at the club.
That's obviously, I mean, that must be incredible for you as a dad to see her. And you mentioned that she asked you for advice because, of course, keeping is a very unique position, and that's what this podcast is about. And it's a very lonely position. Sometimes I think I've worked with Rich for a while now, and I get the idea that it is sort of very isolated from the rest of the team. And one of the things that you've been quite open about in recent years is suffering with depression. And I read a article in The Guardian that you spoke to The Guardian about, and it was very open, it was very candid, and I think it's something that will help a lot of people. A lot of people can relate to. Are you able to just tell us a little bit about that moment in your career and how it started and what happened for you?
Yeah, well, I've always been a home person, so I've always liked to be near home. We moved up to Liverpool in 2001. When I left there, was at Wigan, so I didn't have to move house or anything like that. We had Lucy in 2006, so everything was great. I was 15 minutes away from training. I was home all the time. Always been a family person. Leona and Lucy come first, and then when I left Wigan, which I never wanted to do, I was told I'd be there as long as I wanted to be, but we know in football things don't work out that way. And I left on not bitter terms, but sad terms that things wasn't carried out the way they were meant to be. I went to Sheffield Wednesday, which was a brilliant club, but the travelling started to get on. The worrying about, I wouldn't say the worrying about travelling and getting stuck in traffic and not getting home and missing stuff with Lucy or missing stuff with Leona. It just started to creep in. I didn't want to stay over any time at all, so even if I'd finished training at what time, I'd drive home, and even if I got home at 8 o'clock and I still had to be up at 5 the next morning to leave for training again. So I always used to come home, and I think it just gradually started eating away at me. For the first season, I played every game. I got player of the season, so on a match day, I could sort of put it to the back of my mind, but as soon as the game finished, I was worrying again about, I'm off tomorrow, but then I'm back in Monday, and we had a couple of things happening in the personal life as well, which added to that. And by the third season at Sheffield Wednesday, so this is 2014-15, Kieran West would come in, and I was glad that he'd come in because it meant I didn't have to play anymore, because it was starting to affect me that much. I just didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to play, didn't want to train, which I've never been like that. So I knew that they wanted me to sign again. The club were unaware of this. Andy Rhodes, who the goalie coach, was brilliant. He knew there was an issue, but he didn't dig too deep, but he just said, listen, whatever you need to do, you do. So he gave me days here and days there, and without him, I'd have walked a long, long time before I did. They wanted me to sign again in 2015, and I was going to sign. I was in my kit. I went in for the first day pre-season. I was in my kit. And somebody just said, you can't, you need to get back home. And, I went up to the office. They thought I was walking in to sign the papers. And I just said, listen, I need to go home. I've got some problems. And went home and I said, listen, I'll only sign for a team if I sign someone local. So I signed for Preston. But by this time I was gone too far then. I just didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to go out of the house. I just couldn't wait to get back from training, shut the door, shut the gates. As I said it before, I wasn't a dad to Lucy. I was there, but I wasn't a dad or a husband for 4 or 5 years. And I went to bet with Berry on pre-season, and it just got to that point where I knew if I didn't do something, then Lucy. I kept saying Lucy won't have a dad to go up with, and the thought of that was heartbreaking. And that's the thing that made me get help and made me sort myself out, because I've seen our best friend that died. I've seen the devastation it left for him and his kids, for Donna and Zoe and Ryan, and I've seen the devastation it caused when he wasn't there, and I just didn't want that to happen to Lucy, so I knew I had to do something, and thankfully with Leona's help I managed to do it, and things are great now.
And is there a help network and a support network in place for players at the moment, do you feel?
There's not enough of one, so I mean, I didn't know obviously when I was going through it, so starting from, probably when I was bad, 2015, I didn't know who to go to, but now obviously with everything that's been going on and people that have come out and spoke, and the PFA are doing a lot now for the players to know that there is help there if they need it, because I mean, since think since I did the interview with the Guardian, I mean, I think it's gone treble the amount of players that have asked for help off the PFA. So the PFA are aware of the problem, but they've still got no idea just how big the problem is.
Chris, before we let you go, a regular feature that we want to go through is just a couple of quick fire questions to know a little bit more about you and your career, okay? So we're tentatively going to call, I say we, I can see Rich's face thinking, what is Joe talking about? I am tentatively calling it the locker room, okay? So, okay.
Absolutely brilliant.
What is your best locker room memory?
Well, I've got a few that I can't say over the air. There's definitely a few that I can't say, but
this is an X-rated podcast.
I think to be honest, I think the best ones are one of the best is when we stayed up with Wigan. We stayed up at Villa, second to last game at Villa Park under Steve Bruce, and you know when you do that, when you've been involved in relegation battles, and I've got relegated a couple of times, and it's a horrible feeling. So when we managed to stay up at Villa Park. And that's the season I got Player of the Year as well. And after everything that happened the last few years of injuries and stuff, that was probably one of the best times I've seen in the dressing room.
Who would you say is your strangest ever teammate?
Oh, wow, there has been a few of them.
I can imagine.
You never played with Rich, did you, Chris?
No, Rich would never be on that. I was Charles Nzogby was unique. I'll use that word. Unique. Abel Xavier was a cracking guy, but he had his own ways as well. So yeah, probably up there with them two, I would say.
In like a they were strange in a charming way or an unsettling way. So we're talking more sort of comedy rather than Hannibal Lecter.
Yeah, well, Charles was a bit the other way. He caused a lot of trouble. Charles is obvious, but Abel Xavier, he was nice as pie. But yeah, he was his own person, that's for sure.
What's the weirdest thing you've ever seen in a locker room?
Again, I can't.
This is a great segment. I'm loving it.
The weirdest thing that is. I'll tell you what it is. I tell you what it is. This is I don't know if I can actually say this actually. I don't know if
go for it.
Out. Yeah, I can say it. Hey, right, we was in the Liverpool on a Sunday morning because we had a game on a Tuesday. I was in the physio room getting a strap in and massage, and I won't name the name, but a player walked in limping. So he's limping and he's holding sort of like his glute area. So the physio said, "Oh, what's happened?" He went, "Oh, I was out last night and got shot." So he actually had. So when he said it, everyone was like, right, okay. And he went, no, seriously, I got shot last night. And he pulled his pants down. He had a bullet hole that went straight through his bum, basically, and come out the other side. It was incredible. So that's definitely the strangest thing I've seen.
That is going to take some beating, let me tell you.
that is true. I'm not going to name the name, but that is true.
Amazing. Chris, thank you so much for talking to us. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks, Chris.